It's the BYU Cougars hosting the Stanford Cardinal Saturday night at Lavelle Edwards Stadium. What are the Fighting Andrew Lucks, as I like to call them, going to look like as the Cougars take them on? We're talking about it on a special edition of Locked On Cougars with the Cardinal Sports Report.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. I'm Jake Hatch, executive producer at the KSL Sports Zone in Salt Lake City, Utah, and a 14-year credentialed media member at BYU. I am your resident expert and insider, your host here on this show. And today we are joined by Ben Parker from the Cardinal Sports Report, covering the Stanford Cardinal. And Ben, right out of the chute on today's show, we're going to talk about what Stanford, what we expect it to look like Saturday night when they take on the BYU Cougars. Also want to get your thoughts on Andrew Luck. We'll talk about his reimagining of the farm coming up, and then we'll finish up with some predictions of the game ahead. But I want to start off with this, Ben. After the season opening loss in week 0 for the Stanford Cardinal at Hawaii, are we expecting a wholly different look from the Stanford Cardinal when they show up in Provo on Saturday night?
You talking like a different team from what we saw against Hawaii?
Well, you're the one that have to answer that for me.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest problems from that game against Hawaii was the quarterback play, and Ben Gulbranson, who had one of the worst performances, if not the worst performance of any. I think it was the worst of all the FBS quarterbacks in the country. That week's kind of week 0/week 1 performances, and he's gonna be running it back under center. He's a 6-year graduate transfer from Oregon State. They have a couple of young bucks that they could roll with if things get bad. In former modern day quarterback, 4-star redshirt freshman Elijah Brown, and also UCF transfer Dylan Risk. So I mean, I think a lot of it kind of depends on the quarterback play, because had they had a decent, okay quarterback play against Hawaii, they would have won that game by like 10 points at least. So that's, I think, kind of the big question is like, does the quarterback play improve? Does Gulbranson play better? Or if he continues to struggle, that could be a long day at Lavelle Edwards for the Cougars. For the Cardinals, I should say. Yeah.
Now, when it comes to Stanford right now, Frank Reich is there for 1 year. He's helping Andrew Luck kind of get things going here as they engineer a rebuild. What have your impressions of Frank Reich been as a head coach? And do you feel like he's a good fit on an interim basis?
Yeah, I mean, I think with Frank Reich, I think that for this season, I think given kind of what their needs are as a program, I think he's been a good fit. I think that they wanted somebody that had experience that could kind of bring a sense of stability. Troy Taylor was very widely disliked by a lot of the players. Yeah, I have some stories on that, different day maybe, but the players were not happy, and so I think that like bringing in somebody that Andrew Luck really respects, really knows and likes and trusts is big. And then he's got NFL credentials, right? I mean, he's been an NFL head coach before. He's got a Super Bowl ring with the Colts, and he knows Andrew. So I think, like, given kind of the unique situation they were in this year, I think it's going to be. I think it makes sense. But no, he's insisted it's a 1-year deal, and I think that's it. So I think come November, December, they're going to be, maybe even October, they're going to already start kind of looking around and kind of seeing who they can maybe hire to be their next head coach.
I watched that game between Hawaii and Stanford, and I came away fairly impressed with the running prowess of Stanford. Is that, in your opinion, the identity of this squad right now as a power run program?
Yeah, I think certainly one thing they're looking to do this year is they're looking to run the ball a lot more than they did last year. I think that's a major point of emphasis. They have a really deep running back room. Micah Ford is the lead back, and he rushed for over 100 yards against Hawaii and did a really nice job of like breaking tackles. And then a couple other running backs as well, and Cole Tab and Cedric Irvin did a nice job as well. So there's a lot of depth there, and I think that kind of given what appears to be limitations at quarterback, I think they're hoping the running game can kind of carry them a lot more than years past. So I think they're looking to establish the run, kind of have that be the focus, and hopefully that can open up things for them in the passing game.
Now, you talk about Ben Gulbranson, his performance not all that stellar when it came to the performance against Hawaii. what is it going to take to really unlock the passing game? Is it going to be him just taking a step further? Because he's a 6-year senior, so you're hoping you get some more experience from him. It feels like, at least from my vantage point. But what's going to take to unlock that passing game?
Yeah, it's going to start with him. Ultimately, it's going to start with him just playing better. They're just throws he missed that he shouldn't have missed, right? There was a pass to the tight end Sam Rouse that he should have made. He should have hit. It's a little short, right? And Rouse wasn't able to get that. So it's going to start with that. I felt like the pass protection was actually decent. He wasn't under too much duress. So it's going to start with that. And then the other thing too is the wide receivers, I think, could do a better job of getting themselves open. There were times where nobody was open, and if you're quarterback and nobody's open, that makes it hard. So I think it's a combination of Gulbranson just playing better, being more accurate with his throws, and then also just receivers doing a better job of getting themselves open. And I think one other thing really key is getting their tight end Sam Rouse going, because he's kind of the star of the team. He was one of the offensive guys that came to ACC Media Day. They're expecting a big year out of him, and against Hawaii, just 3 receptions for 6 yards. That's not going to cut it.
Now, when it comes to Stanford right now, obviously they're going to try and get things rebuilt here with Andrew Luck leading the way. And I want to talk about what his work in just a moment. But having the week 0 game, then having the rare week 1 bye, how is Stanford spent it? What's the feeling around the program? Because I know that you're there in Palo Alto hanging around and talking to players and coaches.
Yeah, I think they're trying to view this as a positive. Not the loss to Hawaii, of course, but they're looking the early bye as a positive, right? That they get a chance to kind of like learn from the first game, reevaluate things, get 2 weeks to prepare for BYU. And I think the other thing I would just say is I think they understand that this is going to be a process for them as a program, and so they're trying to stay calm. They're just trying to focus on getting better every day and having a real kind of growth mindset. And kind of have that dictate things. And I think what they're really kind of focusing on is just making sure they come up with a good game plan. Everyone's dialed in. Everyone knows what they're supposed to do. And they play smart and they play tough and, play physical and play together. So I think it's kind of all the cliches, but I think that really they're just trying to, kind of use this past bye week as an opportunity for growth and maybe take advantage of having 2 weeks to prepare for BYU, whereas in BYU will have had 1 week to prep for them.
All right, coming up next, he's one of the most fascinating figures in all of college football, in my opinion. I'm not just saying that because of his time playing for Stanford. He's now the GM. He's kind of got the whole process underway to reimagine the farm and what the Stanford Cardinal football program is going to look like. He is Andrew Luck, and we'll talk more about him next right here on a special edition of Locked On Cougars with the Cardinal Sports Report. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Upside. Cougar fans, are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving that money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app today in the App Store or Google Play and start earning cash at the pump right now. Use the promo code football, and a limited time promo code, by the way, and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up from our friends at Upside. You make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already needed. The best part is you probably think it's too good to be true, but it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can do the exact same. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and many other brands that you may be interested in. Don't let us offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now using the free limited time promo code football for a limited time 25 cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code football with our friends at Upside. Make sure that you check it out today with the free Upside app. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at Mazda. Now, Mazda's moving the game forward is brought to you by those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it, because those moments do more than win. They push what's possible. They remind us to go the extra yard, shift in that extra gear, and keep moving the game forward. And today we want to highlight what I think is maybe the most impactful play of BYU's win over Portland State. That was the scoop and score from Jack Kelly off the blocked field goal. Early on in that game, Portland State had been moving the ball a little bit against BYU, but that blocked field goal changed everything. Jack Kelly racing to the end zone and really igniting what ended up being an avalanche for BYU in that victory. It's a big moment for BYU, and that's what keeps fans and players alike moving forward, always chasing the next great moment. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning, and just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Check it out today with Mazda. As they like to say, move and be moved. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Joined once again by Ben Parker from the Cardinal Sports Report, cardinalsportsreport.com. And Ben, Andrew Luck, I remember watching him when I was going to college, him playing for Stanford. I was lucky enough to attend a Stanford home game when he was quarterbacking them against Oregon. One of the best games I have been to live. It was just absolutely electric. The environment there in Palo Alto. Things have really changed since his time as a player on the farm there, but now he's back as the general manager. Give me a sense overall of what the feeling around the Stanford community is with him at the helm of the football program, trying to get it back to what it was when he and Jim Harbaugh were prowling the sidelines.
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a lot of optimism, obviously, and hope, just because when it comes to Stanford football, you really don't get any bigger name than Andrew Luck. I mean, that's really as big as it gets. I mean, I think John Elway is probably the best NFL player to come out of there, but
Andrew Elway and then Andrew Luck probably, right?
Yeah. It's those three guys, kind of their holy trinity of quarterbacks, at least. So there's tremendous amount of hope with him at the helm, and University President Jonathan Levin specifically asked him to take on this position. So this is coming from the university all the way top down. They really wanted this to happen. I think the real hope is that kind of the combination of his NFL experience, his overall football IQ, and also just his intimate understanding and knowledge of Stanford, I guess you could say, could unlock the necessary recipe for success in the farm. So there's a lot of, I think, hope and optimism. But I think this past weekend, or 2 weekends ago against Hawaii, I think was a reminder that, was kind of a little bit of a reminder that, okay, there's still a lot of work to do. It's still a rebuild, and it's going to take time, and people are going to be patient. So I think that's kind of the big thing here. But no, there's certainly a lot of optimism and hope, and it's certainly rejuvenated and reignited a lot of hope in the program that was really kind of waning during the twilight years of the David Shaw era, and also during the brief Troy Taylor era, if you want to call it that.
Now, are the fans back in? Because I have seen some games in recent years where, I'm not going to lie, Cardinal Stadium looks downright empty. Has he re-energized it to a point where there's more fans showing up, or is it going to take time to rebuild their trust in the program simply by winning?
I mean, we'll find out when they have the first home game. We'll see what the home. Yeah, we don't know yet. I can't really answer that question. I think that, like I tell people, to quickly sidetrack to basketball for a second. Back in the Mike Montgomery days, the peak Mike Montgomery days, and Stanford was #1 in the nation. During that time period, there's that famous shot Nick Robinson hit to knock. People were setting up camp outside the arena for hours outside Maple Pavilion Park, camping out overnight to get tickets to watch Stanford basketball. Reason why? Because they're #1 in the nation. Now Maples Pavilion is kind of an empty tomb. Why? Because they haven't done anything since, for a long time. So I think, ultimately, to bring back to football, it's the same thing. It just comes down to, there's more people that come to watch Stanford women's volleyball on average than men's basketball. Why is that? Women's volleyball is contends for national titles. They're always in the mix. Men's basketball, hopefully Kyle Smith can get them on the right track. But it's just really if they can start winning games, then yeah, I think people will come. But I'm not necessarily certain that the presence of Andrew Luck alone is going to start getting butts back in the seats. Maybe for the first couple games, maybe this season, but ultimately they're going to have to start winning if they want to pack Stanford Stadium again.
Now, when it comes to his philosophy for this football program, I always loved the phrase, the intellectual brutality, that was kind of the dominant theme of the Jim Harbaugh era. They're lining up in I formation. Luck obviously opened that offense up a little bit just because he was an NFL caliber quarterback. What do you think he wants the Cardinal identity to be in football? Is it that intellectual brutality? They want to get back to that?
Yeah, they do, and good on you for catching yourself on Cardinal, not Cardinals. A lot of people
I
think it's
apologize.
no, don't worry. You caught it. You know your stuff. I appreciate that. No, they want to get back to being a physical team that runs hard, plays physical. I think something that really is at the heart of that intellectual brutality is the play in the trenches. Their offensive line used to be known as a tunnel workers union. And something, if you want to talk about like why did Stanford football start to like really struggle the last few years, it really was the play in the trenches. The offensive and defensive lines just got soft and they just were not what they were supposed to be. So I think that something they're really emphasizing is bringing back that physicality and that intensity up front in the trenches, and then having that kind of be the foundation of the team. Because if you look at the last few years, I mean, they've had some really talented skill position guys. I mean, Tanner McKee with the Eagles at quarterback, on the outside at cornerback, Kaya Blue Kelly's fighting for a starting job with the Las Vegas Raiders. Like Michael Wilson with the Cardinals doing good things. I mean, Fajoka, like, so there's guys, they've had good skill position players, but it's been the trenches, it's been the problem. So I think like they're really trying to like emphasize the importance of like being physical up front, and that's something that they really addressed during the transfer portal. Nikki Prongos from UCLA and also Nick Fatig from Texas Tech are two transfers they brought in that are starting. And so, no, they absolutely right. They want to bring back intellectual brutality, and that starts up front.
Stanford for many, many years, and they still are to a level, recruiting rival of BYU's because of the academic prowess. And Stanford education is second to none in many respects. Do you anticipate that whoever ends up leading this program under Andrew Luck is going to really engage with the community around the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, bring LDS athletes back to the farm as guys like David Shaw and Jim Harbaugh did in large doses relative to what Stanford had before them?
Yeah, I think on the LDS, you're talking about bringing LDS players. Yeah, no, I have actually a blog post. I have an article coming out on the site that will go through kind of the top. I didn't say top 5 LDS, but it was like top 5 players that Stanford has pried away from BYU. All of them are LDS, so it's kind of interesting. No, I think that is something that can continue. Something that's interesting is recruiting. One of the recruiting coordinators, Preston Pearson, actually spent a lot of time growing up in Utah, and so he's got a lot of kind of familiarity with that region, and so that's something that should absolutely help them kind of continue that. The other thing, and is they continue to land Utah kids. Bote linebacker got him. Scotty Edwards.
Yeah.
Scotty Edwards, Brandon Marcel Olayinka, BMO, he's another guy in the lot. So yeah, no, I absolutely think they'll continue to be successful recruiting in the Beehive State. I don't know if it will quite be to the same degree it was, because the major reason for that was the presence of Lance Anderson, who's now the head coach at Utah Tech. He was a DC for a long time. But no, I think that they'll continue to find success recruiting the LDS kids in Utah. Just because I think one thing that I've kind of told people, because when I was covering Cal, was it was really hard for Cal to pull kids out of Utah, and part of it with Cal was, I mean, the education at UC Berkeley is phenomenal as well, but Berkeley's kind of a it's an acquired taste, and it's a little bit of an unusual place. So with Telegraph and everything, I loved it, but it's just kind of like not. But Stanford is Ivy League, and it's a little more of a conservative, cleaner environment, really, and so I think Stanford's a pretty easy sell to those kids. So no, I think they'll continue to find success there. Yeah, it's always, I think one of the things that's been interesting, you kind of a little bit of a side note here, but just the amount of like recruiting overlap between these two schools. There's a lot of kind of similarities, I think, that Stanford and BYU both kind of have. So there's obviously Bear Bachmeier and Tiger are there, and go back to Taysom Hill. He was committed to Stanford, but flipped because they didn't do early enrollees yet. So it's very interesting to kind of see the back and forth and kind of the mixing of players, and LJ Martin as well, guys that have kind of been recruited by Stanford that have ended up BYU or vice versa. Even though they don't play each other that much, there's a lot of overlap and battles on the recruiting show, which is fun to see.
Well, if you want an aside, I've got a grandfather who has degrees from Utah, BYU, and Cal Berkeley. So talk about acquired taste. He would tell you the exact same thing. It is a bit, but he really enjoyed his time in Berkeley. It's just
I love Berkeley. Shout out to the Golden Bears. Seriously, I love my time there. Absolutely amazing school.
Yeah.
And I'm here covering Stanford. It's yeah. So.
Hey, Right there, right in the same area, no doubt about that. All right, we're going to finish up this edition with the Cardinal Sports Report and Ben Parker coming up next. I'm going to talk a little bit just about the game in general. I do want to ask him more about the Bachmeier brothers. We will get into that as well. So plenty more as we wrap up this edition of Locked On Cougars with a special guest on the Cardinal Sports Report right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at DoorDash. Now, it's almost the weekend. It's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on who delivered, and it's powered by our friends at DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving you more every time you order. These players deliver when it mattered most. Let's break it down. Our choice this week is John Tamoiapeo from BYU. He delivered in a big way. Had a big block on that field goal, obviously, to help spur BYU's 69-0 win over Portland State. Also had a fumble recovery later in the game and actually started the game with a tackle for loss that really set the tone for BYU defensively. He came through, no hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, this performance has not been a fluke because John's been a stellar player going back to all last season as well. And just like John Tamoiapeo delivered for BYU, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays at DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday that you order, stack it up all season long. You save the $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday, keep the streak alive, fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. The promo period runs all the way through November 18th. So get it started today with our friends over at DoorDash. Back with Ben Parker from the Cardinal Sports Report and cardinalsportsreport.com here on the Locked On Cougars podcast. And Ben, there's a pretty decided line in this one in favor of BYU as they get ready to face off against Stanford inside Lavelle Edwards Stadium late Saturday night. Give me, I guess, right at the outset here, give me a sense for what it will take, in your opinion, for Stanford to spring what would be a pretty monumental upset if you go by the sports books.
Yeah, really good question. First of all, they even during this, I think one thing that BYU should be, keep in mind here a little bit is during this stretch where Stanford has gone 3-9, they have managed to pull out some pretty impressive wins in each individual season. Last season they beat Louisville, they beat Syracuse. There was a huge win over number 3 Oregon during Tanner McKee's first year as a starter. The incredible 29-0 comeback at Colorado. So even though they've been kind of struggling, they've found ways to win some games that no one thought they would. So I think that kind of a commonality in all of those games, and really starts with they got to take care of the football. They can't turn the ball over. That's something they've really, really been preaching a lot. The other thing I would say too, kind of going off that, is just time of possession. They controlled the time of possession against Hawaii. They just didn't produce the points. So I think if they can establish the run game, control time of possession and not turn the ball over, and then perhaps in addition to that, force a turnover or two, maybe pick off Bachmeier or force a fumble. They are better up for the pass rush is a weapon of theirs. So I think taking care of the ball on offense, establishing the run, and then I think on defense, I think one of the real keys is going to be to make use of their pass rush because they got some guys at the edge position, OLB, and also out front in the D-line that can get after the quarterback and wreak some havoc in the backfield.
Now, a guy they're going to be trying to bring down, speaking from Stanford's side of things, is a former teammate of theirs in Bear Bachmeier. Now, I know he's there for, I guess, the proverbial cup of coffee because he was only there for a couple of weeks in spring ball. But what are the perception of the Bachmeier brothers from the Stanford side of things now that they're suiting up for BYU and in the case of Bear as their starting quarterback?
Yeah, the first thing I would just say is I have nothing but respect for the Bachmeier family. They're just really good people. So I had an absolute blast getting to know Tiger during his 3 years at Stanford. Really a great kid. Really a great kid. Yeah, and I didn't get to know Bear as well because he was there for a short period of time, but great family, great people. So first I want to say that. As far as his players are concerned, no, they're really good. I mean, Bear, you guys saw in the Portland State game, right? That Bear has this ability to not only make plays with his arm, but also make plays with his leg as well. He's very, very fast and is a good running quarterback. And then Tiger Bachmeier, same thing. He's got really good hands. He can make catches in traffic. He's got good speed. He knows how to contort his body, make some nice acrobatic catches. So no, they're both very talented guys. And it'll be interesting to see kind of whether or not Stanford's defense will make use of their knowledge against them. Although, of course, on the flip side, the Bachmeier brothers, especially Tiger, should have a little bit of a feel for what Stanford's defense will do. So it's an interesting kind of chess match there, I think.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Do you feel like it gives advantage one way or the other? Because it really feels like these two programs should have knowledge of one another simply due to that crossover with those two brothers.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think in some respects, I don't really think so as much as it's. I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe, but I think one of the things that I think will make it a little different is I know. I mean, first of all, Bear Bachmeier is only played for he's a true freshman, so I'm sure he's made a lot of changes and improvements to his game from when they saw him. And then Tiger's gonna be running a completely different scheme. So, but I mean, whoever has the one-on-one against Tiger, like if it's Colin Wright going up against Tiger, like there might be, but then Tiger will know what Colin likes to do. So I think that kind of neutralizes itself. Other thing too is like at least schematically, like Stanford's defense, like I guess it's. I mean, one thing I was gonna say is they have a co-defensive coordinator in Andy Thompson, and they kind of made some changes to the defense with that. So it's possible that Bear might be aware of some of the changes that they made to the defense with Andy Thompson. But once again, a lot has changed since spring. So I think it's more just going to be entertainment to see them on the field against each other than it will really be an advantage for either side. I think it's kind of. I don't think either side has an edge. I don't think really in that.
Now, when it comes to a matchup like this, you mentioned the fact that obviously taking care of the football, that's number one. There's no doubt about that. You will lose the turnover margin, especially in the case when you're a decided underdog as Stanford is. You got to take care of the football. You also talk about the time of possession battle. BYU prides itself, even though they kind of look like a spread team, they pride themselves on also being able to run with impunity. They ran for 468 yards against Portland State. Now, I'm not going to try and compare Stanford's defense to Portland State's because Portland State's was wet tissue paper as to what I would expect from Stanford on Saturday night. But do you expect that matchup there with two teams that really want to run it down each other's throat to lend itself to more of a slugfest?
Possibly. Another quick Cal aside, my first year at Cal as a student, the one win Cal had that year was Portland State. So the one win was Portland State. Yeah, it was a rough year up in Broca that year. But no, I think it'll be a physical game. I really do. I think that I think Stanford certainly. I mean, Micah Ford, if you watch the tape against Hawaii, he was breaking a lot of tackles. And I think it's possible to kind of depend on the quarterback situation that Stanford might realize they might need to lean on the run game a bit more. And then, on the defensive side, I mean, Clay Patterson had a couple really big plays against Hawaii there with the TFL in the end zone and also the other massive TFL that got negated by his TikTok dance. So hopefully we won't do that again. But but no, I think that this is a game where I think both sides are going to look to be physical, and Stanford certainly something that they said has been a change from past years is the physicality has gone up. They say that. I'm kind of amazed they admit that because like what you weren't physical before. Football's a physical game, but I do think that the physicality aspect and I think whoever can establish the run there is going to have an edge.
Is there anything else you feel like Cougar fans need to know about the Stanford Cardinal squad ahead of this matchup?
Not really. No, I mean, I think that I think just to kind of reiterate, I think what's important, I guess the one thing I would say is it's maybe important to kind of underscore kind of the amount of LDS players that are on the team, that are players that have connections to Utah. I mean, Scotty Edwards talked earlier today about growing up as a kid, going to BYU games. His mom's a professor there. He's got a sibling that goes there. So there's a lot of guys on the team that are going to be really, really fired up to be playing at Lavelle Edwards Stadium. So I guess I'm trying to say is, for BYU, it might not quite feel like this, but I think for some of the Stanford guys, at least, it's going to feel like kind of sort of a rivalry game a little bit from their perspective. And another thing too, just really quickly, as I said earlier, is, Stanford has found ways to win some pretty improbable games over the past few years. Even if the record doesn't say they're any good, they found a way to pull some rabbits out of the hat, so to speak. And so certainly you just gotta be ready. Every year Stanford has a kind of a surprise win, and BYU just better make sure it's not against them, even if Stanford is once again 3-9 this year.
Well, don't count the Cardinal out of anything. So I remember I think it was TCU last year. They made TCU absolutely sweat for it, even though TCU won that game, if I recall. I think that one was right down to the wire. You cannot overlook what Stanford brings to the table, and we're looking forward to this one. Ben, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find your work?
Yeah, thanks so much, Jake, for having me on. Just go to cardinalsportsreport.com and click on any of the articles, and you'll see the social media information at the bottom. So just go to that.
All right. Well, Ben, thanks so much for the time. We'll hopefully do this again down the road. All right.
For sure. Be great.
All right. Thanks to Ben Parker for joining us here right on Locked On Cougars. And as always, thank you to all of you for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review, share with your family and friends. Make sure that everybody knows about this podcast, daily BYU content you will not find anywhere else. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. And until tomorrow, everybody, come back here and be an everyday right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.